Welcome, Aisha, to the World XP podcast. It's been a long time. I think probably since we've spoken to each other, and yeah, it's been a long time
Yeah,
coming, and I'll leave it at
since
that. I appreciate your time.
2017. Thank
Yeah,
you for having me. I'm excited.
of course. I found all sorts of partly how I go through finding guests is go through people I either haven't talked to in a while. Is good. It's a good mechanism to catch up with people, even though it's kind of
Yeah.
like an underlying thing. But also, I found when you started your fitness blog, are we going to call it a blog, or
Yeah,
how do you
we
want to
call it
call
a
it? We'll
vlog.
call it a
Vlog.
blog.
Yeah, sure.
And you started producing content, and I saw the content, and I was like, wow, this is very polished. And so I was like, this is good. Let's have a chat and
Thank
see
you.
where you're at.
Yeah. Yeah, I started. So, I mean, fitness has been my passion, I think, since like junior year of high school. I went through a phase where like I was eating like crap and just felt like crap, wasn't doing anything physical whatsoever. And it started there. It wasn't like the best start per se or like healthy start, because when you don't know anything, you just kind of go by what the internet gives you. And then from there on, it became my passion. And the past year, I left my corporate job and trying to do the thing full time.
So yeah, that's all. I feel like a lot of people our age are kind of wanting to bounce out of the 9 to 5
Yeah,
corporate sort of sphere. And I feel also like the working from home during the pandemic helped a lot of people sort of open up to that idea of making your own schedule and doing things like that. The only caveat I think with making your own schedule and um, doing that sort of thing is you have to drive yourself, and
for sure.
it's also something that if you don't like what you're doing, it's going to be really hard to get out of bed to do it because you don't have a boss telling you to do it. You are your boss. And
Yeah, for sure.
I think as you know who Jordan Peterson is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he says you're a horrible employee and your own worst boss. So
Yep. I mean, that's where I found myself, honestly, when we went fully remote. Was it what, March of last year?
mhm.
Yeah, March, February time. I was like, I was getting out of bed and I was doing what was asked of me, but it was just a drag. Like I was like, I hate doing this. And then going from, I was doing sales, so it's a very one-on-one, face-to-face interaction with people. And then taking that from in person to over the camera just made it 10 times worse for me, I think, because it was just, I wasn't getting the interaction I wanted to from being in front of people. Giving presentations was different online. And I realized like this is not for me. So I just took the leap and went for it.
Yeah, it's risky.
It was, people called me crazy. They still call me crazy. They're like, you left during the pandemic when people are losing their job. And I mean, for me, I just think you just have to find a way to do it. I was 3 years into what I was doing, and it wasn't going to change as far as like me loving it. I mean, I think 3 years, giving something 3 years is a decent amount of time. But it was just, how am I going to get myself out of this situation and then start working towards what I want to do eventually. And like I said, I mean, I got a nannying job. I'm personal training people on the side. So you just have to go for it.
Yeah, for sure. Can you walk us through that sort of your thought process before you quit that job? Because I think a lot of people um, have or are currently thinking about it. I would say if you're saying you've never thought about quitting your job, you're probably lying. But
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that's okay. So can you walk us through sort of the thought process before actually pulling the trigger and doing that? Kind of what things like the ducks in a row that you had to have, like what sort of things did you have to have in place before you did that? What were the sort of like thought processes and all that stuff before you actually went ahead and did it?
Yeah, for sure. So I actually got a promotion like a month before I decided I was pulling the trigger. And it was a promotion that I had been working for almost a year and a half. So I got the promotion. I thought I would be psyched, that I was like, okay, I'm there. And then I kind of felt empty. Like it wasn't what I wanted. It just, it wasn't something like, oh my gosh, I've been working for this and I achieved it and I feel so great. And that's when I knew exactly in that moment, this is not where I belong. This is not what I want to do. And I need to leave now while it's early, while I still have time and I can still pivot and change careers. So yeah, strategy wise, I had to be very strategic because it was the pandemic. There weren't a lot of places hiring in general. So I was like, how am I going to leave and still have an income, and have the income at least that I was making? Because I was making a decent amount of money in the sales job that I was doing. So I started, everybody that I followed on Instagram, all the fitness people, everybody was doing online training. And I was like, well, I can do that too. Like, that's fine. So I started just looking up like personal training jobs online. How can I do this? And then it was more so working for like the big corpo gyms, like Gold's Gym, Planet Fitness, all those. They were offering videos. But and during the time of the pandemic, my gym closed. So I found a normal like mom and pop gym down the street from me, and they were still open because they were private. So I started going there and found people there that needed help getting in shape. So I started training them, started charging them. And then that was the first step. I was like, okay, now I'm getting paid for what I love to do, but still not enough for me to actually live on my own. So then I was like, I'm going to nanny on the side. Looked up a bunch of nannying jobs, more so geared specifically towards families that want somebody bilingual. And I found a family right away that was actually moving from New York to Virginia because of the pandemic. And they have two little 5-year-old and 2-year-old sons. Interviewed with them, got the job right away. And then I was like, okay, so I have two sources of income. I can live pretty well on my own. And that's when I finally was like, I know I can do this. Like, there are jobs out there. There is money out there. It's not, if I leave my job, it's not the end of the world. I'm not going to be like homeless or have no money coming in. So I gave my 2 weeks after that.
So you already had that stuff already lined up, already everything, well, I'll say signed, but you were already bringing in the other sort of source of income, or had it ready to go before you put in your 2 weeks, right?
Yes, 100%. I'm a very careful person as far as like I needed to know I had money coming in before I was going to let go of my job. It wasn't like the leap of faith of just quitting my job and being like, okay, well, I'll figure it out after that. I had jobs lined up before I left, and I would recommend that to anybody. Don't just get up and leave.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's why, when you mentioned that when we were chatting briefly before, I remembered you being relatively careful, and you thought stuff out before you did things, from our time in college, at least that I remembered. So I figured it would be a good sort of example to ask you how you did it, because I would, not that there's a right or wrong way to do it, but yours is the risk mitigated way, I guess, for lack of a better word. And I think that's important for people to hear, because often you hear people be like, oh, I just quit my job and moved to LA and tried to become an actor. And then you don't hear anything from them after that. And it's like,
and they come back home.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I think I'm all for pursuing your passion. If you want to go to LA and become an actor, that's fine. But you have to find a side job in LA lined up before you go and do whatever it is you're going to do. And funny you mentioned that, because my boyfriend and I do want to move. I don't want to move to LA, but California region in general, because he has a lot of business out there. But I'm finding myself in the same box again as last year of, I need to have stuff lined up out there before we go ahead and move, so I can make sure that I'm okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to touch on one thing real quick, and that's the bilingual part. I know it's Spanish is the other one as well, right?
Yes.
And then do you remind me, was there another language that you also spoke, or?
So I speak French, Spanish, obviously English, and Arabic.
Yes, that was the 4.
Yes.
I couldn't remember if it was French or something else. So how does that work in your sort of, have you found that useful in life, and in just general life? Not obviously if you were to travel, it would be useful, but.
Yes, 100%. I found it really useful in my sales job because it was like like it would, and it would start a conversation right away. Number one. Number two, we had plenty of clients that were either Spanish speaking, or I didn't really find French, I would say, is the least language that I use in the US. But yeah, we had clients that were Arabic speaking, Spanish speaking, and that would, I would say, 100% help me make the sale, because that was just like an instant connection.
Hmm.
And then, yeah, now it's helpful in me finding a nannying job and me personal training people. I mean, I have two clients that are in Morocco. They speak Arabic and French, obviously. They don't speak English. So it's helping me, reach a broader range of clients, as far as like me still being able to communicate with them about what it is that I need them to do nutrition wise or workouts wise, and not it having to be in English.
Yeah. Do you find yourself like with French specifically, or the ones that you use least, kind of, if you were put on the spot, do you find yourself being rusty at all? Because I remember when we went to Mexico
100%.
for soccer, like I wouldn't call myself fluent in Spanish, but when I graduated college, I would say proficient, maybe
Yeah.
able to like,
Have a conversation.
yeah, have a conversation, like order food at a restaurant, get into a hotel, like all that stuff, no problem. And the first couple of days, I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot everything.
Oh yeah.
And then by the end, I was fine. But do you find that as well?
100%. And that happens to me across the board with all languages besides English, because English I use it daily. But
Hmm.
even with Arabic, I mean, I speak to my mom in Arabic, and sometimes I find myself like asking her, how do you say this word in Arabic, or how do you say
Hmm.
that word? And then my host family in Spain. So when we were in college, I studied abroad for 6 months, and I lived with
Right.
a family, and I still keep in touch with them, FaceTime with them here and there. And they always make fun of me when I get on FaceTime. They're like, oh no, you're starting to sound American again. Like, what happened to you? So that 100% happens to me.
Do you try and keep up, like, and practice them? Like, I know you said you spoke with your mom in Arabic and your host family in Spain, but do you try to find ways to continue to remain fresh?
Yes. So I watch, if there are shows in whatever the language is, French or Spanish, I try to watch it in that language. Sometimes I'll turn subtitles on just to make sure that it's kind of weird. Like I understand what it is I'm listening to, but the words help me like almost reassure my brain that, okay, that makes sense. That's what it is that I'm listening to, or that what I'm comprehending. But shows, I'm trying to get back into reading in French, especially because, like I said, that's my rustiest language out
Yeah.
of all of them. Podcasts, I'm listening to like random podcasts in Spanish or French or even Arabic. But yeah, I mean, just random resources here and there.
Yeah. I try and do that with music, especially in Spanish.
Yeah,
But
music's a huge one.
I've not really gotten to the shows, or sometimes I'll listen to, if it's a soccer game and the broadcast is in Spanish, I'll listen, but
Yeah,
they talk so fast sometimes that it's like,
they do
not,
talk
it's
very
not even
fast. I
Spanish.
don't think I
Is it
can
really?
understand them if the soccer commentators.
Yeah.
But music is a huge one. Music is really underrated. Like as far as languages go, it's funny you say that. I was chatting with a personal trainer, and he's based in Morocco, and he speaks English really well. So I asked him, I was like, how did you learn English? And he said, music and movies. And I was like, really? Like his accent's decent. He speaks well. I was like, music? He was like, yeah, I just listen to music and I really listen to the words over and over again. And that's how I picked it up. And I was like, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting. And then the more you listen to something in a certain accent, like I've had over the last 6 months, I'd say I've had probably 10 to 15 people at least tell me that I sound either like Irish or Scottish, and I don't know why.
Really
Yeah, I have no
interesting.
idea, but maybe it's the soccer, or like the some of the YouTube content I watch or whatever. I've picked up like little
Is like,
ticks, or like different, like the way I pronounce certain
maybe.
words here and there. But to your point about him not having his accent being decent, that's probably could be a similar sort of reason why. Um, yeah, language is so cool, man. I need to get back into
It is really cool.
Spanish
And
more.
even like for myself, I mean, I wasn't born here. I was born in Morocco, and we didn't move here until I was like 6, 7 years old. So, and I spoke no English when we moved here. So when people hear me speak, they're like, how do you not have an accent? I'm like, I don't know how it happened. I think I remember like really, really listening to how every word was pronounced and by every person. And I was like, I have to sound like that. Cause I think in my head, I definitely did have an accent when I spoke, and I heard it with myself, but I was like, I need to sound exactly like that person. So I just like practiced words over and over and over. And I guess the accent went away. I don't know if, I don't think I have
Maybe.
an accent, but
No, I don't think so either. The other thing though, I'm a horrible person to ask about that because with soccer, everyone you talk to is from somewhere else, and everyone has
yeah.
accents, whether it's like I played with like German players before, or like Danish, or like
Oh yeah.
Swedish, or then like English. Like I never thought that I would be able to tell the difference between like a Manchester accent, a Scouse accent, and a London accent
Oh
ever.
yeah.
Yeah, it's so for me an accent is just kind of like I don't even notice it anymore, really, if that makes sense.
You
Because
just had
I
an accent right now.
yeah, which one?
I think Irish. I've been hearing it.
See, now that I said that, you're not going to be able to unremember it.
I'm like now really listening to you speak, and I'm like, wait, he does kind of have an accent.
Weird. Maybe that'll be a conversation starter at parties, when those come back.
Yeah, there you go. Oh yeah. Oh
Um,
gosh, I don't know if those are coming back. We might go into lockdown again.
don't say that. We can't be having that. All right, moving on from horrible subjects.
Yes.
Um, so your fitness journey. So you've kind of it's been a passion of yours for a while, and you started with the what was your sort of drive to turn that into a content creation type thing? Because obviously people have their passions that they just do and they don't feel the need to share it with people in the way that you have.
I I just everything I do, I kind of go back to like what I was starting and what kind of help I needed and was looking for in the internet and didn't find it. So when I was like kind of miserable and wanting to get in shape, and this was like I said, junior year of high school, which was 2012, like 2011, 2012, there was really nothing on the internet. Like Instagram was there, but there were no like fitness people starting it yet or any of that. So it was just me going, Googling how to lose weight. And what do you get? Eat 1,000 calories, eat 1,200 calories, which is you're digging yourself into a hole and just kind of hamster wheeling your fitness journey. So that's what made me want to put content out there. Granted, it's very saturated now. Everybody's got a platform and everybody's putting stuff out there, but I wanted to do it for me and for the people that are still ill-informed and want to have information, just the motivation and be able to be out there. And somebody asked me a question through DM, like, how do I do this? Or how do I do that? And that was kind of why I wanted to put myself out there and do it instead of just kind of find a job through it and start just training people on the side.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think some of the stuff that you put out during before the gyms opened back up, I found helpful as well because there's only so many body weight exercises that you can think of before you get bored.
100%.
And
Yeah.
so you were doing stuff with like you would fill up gallon jugs with water and use those as
Yeah.
like kettlebells and different things. And that was super. I never actually did that one, but I was like, oh, that's interesting. I want to try it. And then I didn't try it, but that's okay. But
I
yeah,
think gyms
no,
are like opening.
yeah, they're open now. So,
Yeah.
but that content was super good. I think there was a distinct lack of that last March. I think you jumped on that at a good time and you've kept going from there. So what sort of do you have an end goal or are you just going because you like it?
An end goal would be to take it full time and have my own like training, coaching company, and help people. That would be the end goal. So not to have it as a side job or like, just have to be able to rely on it full time income wise. And to help, I truly like to help people. Like even though there's so much information out there, you would be surprised at how misinformed people are about training, nutrition, just diets in general. And if I can make one difference in someone's life that is thinking they should cut out all carbs because they're going to lose weight or do a keto diet and actually shift them into just eating like a normal person and still get to their goals, then I've made it.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's one of I don't know if you found this as well, but you were talking this the insane amount of information that I've kind of basically just found out what works for me, and I just do that. And I don't really
Yeah.
vary. I don't really vary outside that much, especially in terms of diet,
Yeah.
because, well, it's difficult. I think we were talking offline and about this documentary called Game Changers, and this will
Yeah.
be, we'll have talked about this in the previous episode with Jason by the time this is out. But basically, what it is this documentary that advocates for a vegan sort of diet. And I went and watched a bunch of reviews on it, and basically, what I got out of it was do what works best for you,
Yeah.
which is kind of hard to, if you feel very passionately about something. Like James Wilkes, who's the producer, and I think
Mhm.
he narrates it. He feels very passionately about, like, I think his dad had a heart attack, and they said it was partly because of the cholesterol or like buildup
Yeah.
in his blood. And so he feels very passionately about not eating red meat specifically, but animal products.
Yeah.
It's hard to say no. It's hard to like get that out of your head. I don't know if you found that when you find something that you're passionate about in terms of like something that you know works for you, and you want to be like, hey, this works for me, you should also do it, while also remembering that each person has their own body and like it works differently.
100%. And I think that's the hardest thing in today's society is there are like everybody has a platform, everybody's pushing their idea, and sadly there are, even if there are 2 to 3 people listening to you and watching you, they're going to want to follow what you're doing and they think that your way is the best way. And I always have to tell even my clients, what I tell you, take it with a grain of salt. Like we're in a trial and an error phase. If we do this for a week and it didn't feel good and you tell me it didn't feel good, okay, we're going to change it until we find something that works for you. Just because I do it doesn't mean it's going to work for you. But I do find myself like, I'm very anti all these random fad diets. Like for example, the keto diet or the Atkins diet. Like when
What's
my
the
friends,
Atkins diet?
it's like all protein basically. So the bulk of what you're eating is protein. And then every diet that's out there is advocating for no carbs.
Yeah.
Your body needs carbs to function. And yeah, so that's the Atkins. Or keto obviously is high fat. So
Mm-hmm.
and when I get a friend that tells me, I think I'm going to try the keto diet, that's when like I go into like full on passion mode. And I'm like, why would you do this? And sometimes you have to let people kind of try it, and they get the success for however many weeks they put into it. And then you go back into living a normal life, and then everything's undone.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of those diets they take a lot of planning rather than just kind of being smart with what you eat. If you go on one of these like keto
Yeah.
or vegan, it takes a lot of like a lot more planning than just, I don't want to say being smart with what you're eating, but it's kind of it's
But it
like,
is, yeah.
yeah. I think the one thing that there was, James Wilkes went on Rogan's podcast after the documentary came out, and there was another guy named Chris Krasser who kind of was, I'll say, debunking stuff in the film, but it's not
Mm-hmm.
really debunking because it depends on what. Anyways,
Yeah.
and so they were all basically, how it kind of ended up working out was one of them would make a point and say it's healthier because of XYZ. And then the other person would say, compared to what? And in every study, it's the standard American diet, which I think at the time consists of like burgers, soda, fries, and like pepperoni pizza or something
I think it's
else.
still the standard American
Yeah. And
diet.
so, well, just in terms of what they use for studies.
Right.
Um, and then the other guy would say, well, this is also healthy. And then they'd be like, compared to what? The standard American diet. And basically, it's like both of them are healthier than the standard American diet, mostly
Yeah.
because anything is healthier than that, if we're being honest with ourselves.
100%.
Where was I going with this? Oh, yeah. So basically just as long as you don't do that, the standard American diet, and you're like smart with what you're doing, instead of getting fries as a side at a restaurant, you get a salad or broccoli or whatever, or
Yeah.
vegetables and things like that. You're putting yourself in a better place almost immediately just by like those little decisions.
Yes, but I think that's where people don't want to put the work in, if you will. Like you being smart with your diet is, like you said, get the salad instead of the fries, but people don't want to do that. And that's where people like almost, we're a very like coddling society in America. And it's like, oh, it's okay. You had a bad week. Go ahead and have the side of fries. It's like, well, why would you want to add to your bad week and get a side of fries and make yourself feel 10 times worse? Because you know you're going to feel bad after that. So that's the being smart part, is people don't want to do that. So they'd rather plan, like you said, for that keto for 12 weeks and then lose the 15, 20 pounds and then go back to living normally and repeating the same cycle over and over.
I never understood that. Like, and I don't want this to come off the wrong way to those listening, but I never understood that sort of mindset of I'm just going to do this for a couple of weeks and then see the results and then just revert back to what I was doing that put me back in the crap situation that I was in the first place. And I know it's hard to maintain a level of fitness and diet for years because I've done it / been doing it. It's not always easy.
No.
There's always days where I'm like,
yeah.
But the thing is, now that I've been at the point where I've been maintaining it for like years now, I know that I can, if I want to, get the fries instead of vegetables because I've put in the work over years, and I know like the next day I'm not just gonna be like, oh, I got fries once. I can just continue to get fries.
Exactly. But you're informed, so you know how your body works and the amount of physical activity that you put into it every single day, and there's this checks and balances with yourself, and that's what people miss, is those checks and balances. They'd rather, where America especially is a very instant like gratification society. So I want to lose weight, I want to lose X amount of weight in this amount of time, and that's why we spearhead towards those diets instead of, I want to lose this amount of weight, what's the realistic amount of time I'm going to have to put into it, and then maintain it afterwards. What diet changes, what habitual changes did I make throughout this time to lose that weight that I can keep making lifestyle wise to keep that weight off? And that's where people miss the point. It's, I lose 20 pounds, I can look good for whatever it is I'm trying to do, and then I can go back to eating how I wanted to eat or drink. And I don't understand that mentality either. And I try to, every client I get, I'm like, listen, this is not you being with me for 6 to 12 weeks. I'm truly trying to teach you ways to go about things that you can use for the rest of your life, not just you're with me and you lose 10 pounds and you go back to what you were doing before, because then you just wasted your money and time.
Yeah. Also, after I eat unhealthy, I feel horrible afterwards. So I don't even like doing it anymore. It's not worth like the taste. The other thing, talking about maintaining it though. So at graduation, I was like high 180s or so. I'm like 170 now.
Wow.
And so I've been at like low 170s ever since, basically. So I made those like changes to how I was eating, and like I eat a lot more salmon now, and instead of going to like the UC and just getting ice cream or whatever.
Yeah.
Like that's not available to just do anymore. But also like you get to a point where you feel good at a certain weight. And so like, I don't feel the need to lose anymore or gain any, like I feel good, like in terms of athletics, like my performance is good. I don't need, but it took at least a year to lose like the 15 pounds. And that's not, in terms of a fad diet, that's a long time to lose 15 pounds.
I agree. I'm the same with you. I mean, I think you're at a beautiful place now to just maintain and do what you love to do. And that's the place I want to get to. I was there last year, but then I was like, I want to work towards a bikini bodybuilding show. So that's just something I'm working towards. But after that, like, I just want to go back to normal weight that I'm happy at and my performance is great at. But I mean, it took me, same with me after college, took me like a year and some change to lose 20, 25 pounds. And it was just small changes. It wasn't anything crazy, no random diets. I do count macros, and that's for some people and not for others. So I'm not here to push any sort of like way to go about it, but that's what got me there. And I truly enjoy it. And it's also taught me that I can go days without doing it and still not ruin my progress, because I know how much a bowl of cereal or a serving of cereal is supposed to look like, or a serving of chicken is supposed to look like, versus just willy-nilly throwing things in a plate and eating them and hoping for the best.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say about counting them. Is it's almost just so you eventually know kind of, you can ballpark where you're at day to day. The other thing when you're maintaining, have you ever found that sometimes I find this where it's like the numbers aren't changing at all. And so it's like it's hard to be like when you're actively, whether it's lifting and you're going up in numbers or you're losing weight, you're going down in numbers when you're kind of
Yeah.
maintaining and the numbers are staying the same. You find it hard, like for you personally or for your clients that are at that spot to find the motivation for you or them?
For clients, 100%, because like I said, people, instant gratification. If you're here and you want to gain muscle and you want to see the scale go up and you don't see it, you kind of immediately go, oh, I'm not making any progress, and vice versa. But I think there's such a beautiful thing about maintenance if that's what your goal is. Like when I was right before wanting to compete and making that a goal, I lost the 25 pounds and I was still like happy. I was going out with friends on the weekends, doing what I wanted to do. And the scale wasn't really changing. Maybe it will go up like a pound or two here or there. And I was very happy at that point. Like I knew what I was eating, how much I was eating. My performance in the gym wasn't declining. It was just either with maintenance, honestly, it was probably still progressing because I was like fueling my body with the amount that it needed to.
Yeah.
For me, I think it's a beautiful place. For clients, it's always a tough conversation, especially with people that come to me that are under eating and I have to slowly work them back up to maintenance at least before we could even touch a dieting phase. And it's always a tough conversation to say, hey, we've got to go towards this direction and you might see the scale go up instead of the opposite before we can healthily go into a
Yeah.
fat loss phase.
Yeah. I didn't even consider that. Now that you mentioned that, do you know Daniel Pan? Does the name ring a bell? He's like a photographer and bodybuilder. He went to UMW.
Daniel, you said Daniel?
Yeah,
I feel like I follow him on Instagram,
you
but
might. I think he was.
yeah.
So he was on the podcast a while ago. I think it was episode 8. Shameless plug. Go check it out. He had to. So he was competing in a bodybuilding competition. He goes into detail when we talked. But basically, what happened was he gained a butt ton of weight. Like was eating Wendy's 4 for 4s and like doing all this other stuff, like
Oh my
crazy stuff.
gosh.
And then to build muscle, and then when I think 4 months out, maybe
Mm-hmm.
he was at the gym basically on the Stairmaster doing lifting and then eating like a cup of rice and like something else for breakfast and like doing mad cutting for the bodybuilding thing. And I was like, yo, you're nuts. But to your point about getting up to a certain weight so we can healthily decline, obviously that's not the
Yeah.
way for bodybuilding. It's different, but the concept still applies. And that didn't even occur to me really.
Yeah. I mean, most people, or I'm going to say I have female clients. So most females aren't eating enough. Um, and their choices of what they're eating makes it 10 times worse too. So when they come to me, and I always say, I don't like just take people on right away. I'm like, okay, I need a week of just go ahead and track how you currently eat
Mm-hmm.
and give it back to me. And then we go from there. So when I get the MyFitnessPal logs of a week, it's like 700 calories today, 2000 calories the next day, 1300 calories. And then it's like an average of maybe 1200, 1300 calories for the week. And that doesn't put you in a successful spot to lose weight because your metabolism is already processing such low calories
Yeah.
that if we just kind of, you can lose weight. Sure. I can go ahead and pull 200 calories. Now you're at 1,000. You want to go ahead and pull 200 more. Now you're at 800.
And then you're starving.
Exactly.
Well,
And
not
your
literally,
body,
yeah.
but your body will fight you because at that point you're not fueling it enough. So I always have to have that conversation of, okay, we're actually going to reverse diet and we're going to go back up to maybe 1,800, 1,900 calories so that when we do diet, we don't have to scrape the bottom of the barrel and eat so little to lose weight. And that's actually what my coach has me doing right now is we're reverse dieting so that I can be in a decent spot come January to be able to diet for 4 or 5 months before my show and not be eating 600 calories. That's not healthy for anybody, bodybuilding or not.
Yeah. No, that's exactly what Daniel did for his show. Same timeline and everything. Do you have any sort of I guess I'll call it like high-end athlete clients that you work with? Because I know for at least for myself, like when you talk about like calorie numbers, and obviously male different than female, but
Mhm.
the numbers that I'm eating are up towards like sometime, like depending on what sort of workouts I'm doing, like 3,000, 3,500 type. Do you have you ever done that with the client before where they're like trying to maintain like peak performance and you need to get them like the correct amount of macros rather than saying like we're trying to diet and lose weight?
Yeah. Yeah. I actually have two women right now who are severely underweight. And we're trying to get back up there. I have a girl that's eating almost 3,000 calories. And she is lifting 4 times a week and no cardio. And we're getting there. She's been with me for 7 to 8 weeks now. We're up 3 pounds and it's an average of 3 pounds. So I have people weigh at least 4 times a week so I can get an average idea of where we are weight wise, not just a random like once a week number.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do have women that are eating more than I'm eating to get to their performance that they want, or just to get to the weight and that they want to get to, not just lifting wise, but
Yeah.
a decent
So
weight.
when you get a client, what's your sort of, our prospective client, what's your process of how do you decide? Like, I know you mentioned the logging the food, but what's your process for kind of figuring out their goals, what sort of things they should be eating, what sort of exercise regimen, what sort of like,
Yeah.
what's your process for kind of sorting all that out?
So I have a questionnaire that like is detailed. It goes from amount of sleep, amount of water, caffeine, stress, how many times do you go out a week, how many times do you drink a week. So just like a whole lifestyle questionnaire that they fill out. I get that back, look through it, then go through the whole MyFitnessPal log of how much they're eating. And then I have to have the conversation of I get on the phone with them and see if they're willing to track their habits. And not all my clients count macros. It's not for everybody, but we do have to have some sort of calorie counting if you do have a goal of getting to weight loss or muscle gain or maintaining. So getting on the phone and making sure that you do want to track your habits, track your sleep, track your caffeine intake, water intake, steps, your alcohol, if you are going to be drinking, all that goes into the conversation before I can say, okay, yeah, I can take you on. And I've had people that say, yes, I'm super committed to doing all of that. And then I get a log back the first day of check-in and it's like 1 day of sleep is filled in or 1 day of steps is filled in. And I'm just like, well, you're not serious. So then I have to have the conversation of, are you willing to track all of this? And it's a battle. And sometimes I have let people go because I don't want to take your money and I don't want you to waste my time. And at the end of the day, it's my name on the line and I don't want you to go on social media or word of mouth and say, oh, I was with her for 8 weeks and nothing, and I saw no progress. And it's all the progress starts with you.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you what you should be doing. If you're not doing it, then there's not much I can do for you.
Yeah, that's fair. Are there like certifications and stuff in terms of personal training that you or other personal trainers need to get, or how does that, or is there like a way, like right now you have word of mouth, but is there something that I think on your Instagram you have like letters by your name?
Yeah. So last year I went through NASM and got certified to be a personal trainer. Honestly, I feel like I'm sure there are people out there that are not certified at all. They're just going by their experience, which is fine. I mean, NASM was great as far as textbook material, understanding the body. It just gives you like the general guidelines of exercises and how to go about taking somebody on and teaching them how to exercise from 0 to 100 or whatever it is they're wanting to get to. So yeah, I went through NASM and I'm currently working on getting my nutrition certification through Precision Nutrition. But again, I think people should get certified. I think you should take classes. I think you should read books and obviously experiment. But no, a certification doesn't mean that you are good at what you do.
That's true.
Not to hurt anybody's feelings out there about it.
Yeah, I'm sure everyone is very hurt.
Anybody can read and take a test.
Yeah. I want to shift gears a little bit
Yeah.
in terms of dieting, because I know you celebrate Ramadan, and I have several teammates that celebrate Ramadan, and I witnessed, well, one of my teammates, his name is Barak, if he watches this,
Hi, Barack.
he probably won't watch it. That's fine. What we would be at halftime during our games, like evening games, the sun would set and he would just eat like a bunch of nuts or like high protein, high fat
Mm-hmm.
because he hadn't eaten all day. And it's hot, obviously, summer outside, very humid.
Yeah.
And we're going through a 90-minute game. And these are not like, these are difficult games in terms of
Yeah.
physical exertion. So how do you, during Ramadan specifically, kind of make sure that you get the right amount of nutrients, the right amount of time in between when you eat? And also, and refresh me on what the actual, I don't want to call them rules, but I guess customs are
Yeah.
for when you can eat and not eat.
So with Ramadan, you can eat when the sun goes down, and and you have to stop eating before the sun comes up. And that differs each year because Ramadan's the 9th month of the lunar calendar.
Mm-hmm.
And so it follows the moon, obviously, and it differs each year time-wise, month-wise in the, I guess, Christian calendar,
The
if you will,
calendar,
Gregorian calendar. So for example, this past year, it was half of April, half of May. For me, this was the first year that I made it a goal to train in the morning instead of at night, because the past couple of years I felt like my progress / my performance was just declining, and it always does during Ramadan because, like you said, it's hot. You're not getting the water that you need. You're not getting the food that you need. But this year was the first time that I actually felt like I had a grasp on Ramadan and food and training hand in hand. So I think you asked me how I go about it.
Yeah. How do you go
Your
about it?
question.
Yeah.
So this year I would wake up. I will preface this by saying sleep does suffer a little bit. And that's for anybody, not just me waking up at 3 o'clock and eating, 3 o'clock in the morning and eating before I go to the gym, but people that do stay up later and eat as well. Something takes a backseat in Ramadan. It's either your food or your sleep, and you can kind of pick which one you want to give up a little bit. I was still getting like 6 hours of sleep, but it wasn't I normally am like a Nazi about getting 8 hours of sleep a night. So I would wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I would do a protein shake, a Greek yogurt, and that would all go in the protein shake, some fruit, blend it all up. And then peanut butter or almond butter, like you said, some sort of high fat. And then I would do rice cakes on my way to the gym. So that was like my carb pre workout meal. And on my way to so yeah, I would go to the gym. In my shaker bottle, I had coconut water, Himalayan pink salt, and creatine, and that's what I would drink in the middle of my workout. So by that time, it was like maybe 4:30, 5 o'clock. That was it for me. So I would train, can't have any water or food after that, go about my day for the rest of the day. And then once we can eat, which was around 8 o'clock in the evening this year, I would do a protein shake, oatmeal with some sort of like peanut butter, nut butter in it. And then wait about 2 to 3 hours. I would do a lean protein source like chicken. That's what I mostly eat. Veggies, and then like avocado. So during Ramadan, I try to keep it high fat just because it's easier to eat higher like calories when you're eating fat, and then I can get my calories in that way. Versus the past couple of years, I would try to do high carb, and I would be really full and not eat enough at the end of the day because I wasn't hungry for my next 2 or 3 meals.
Yeah.
And then I would still make it a point to get to bed by like 11-ish, and do it all over again for 30 days.
I didn't realize you couldn't drink water either. I
Yeah,
thought
you
that
can't
was the
drink water.
exception.
No, I wish. Then your
Yeah.
friend Barack wouldn't be suffering on the soccer field.
No, he still would have been suffering because he probably just ate. Never mind. I'm not going to go into that. Brock, love you, bro. So just for my own curiosity, where did that custom come from? Where, like, what kind of is the history behind it? Because I know, right, in the Christian faith, like Jesus was in the desert for I think 40 days with only like bread and water or something like that. I don't remember the exact story.
Yeah.
Is that a similar sort of origin, or kind of how did that, and by similar I mean like a similar sort of story within the
Yeah.
Muslim faith rather than that exact one is what I meant. But
Yeah. So Ramadan's a holy month, and it's believed to be the month where the Prophet Muhammad received revelations from God through the angel Gabriel, and revelations was the Quran, which is I think 114 chapters. Don't quote me on that. Um, and yeah, so it was believed that's when the month that God bestowed his words and wisdom upon Muhammad, and that's when Ramadan started. And I think it's one of the five pillars is fasting of
mhm,
Islam. So that's when it all started, and it is the ninth, like I said, the ninth month of the lunar calendar. But that's the history behind it. I want to say, I have notes here just on it because I'm not the best practicing Muslim out there. So
no,
just
you're
gonna
good.
say that I think it started around 610 AD. So that's the history behind it, if you will. Um,
Gotcha.
and Muhammad wanted to show, I guess, um, I want to say, and also don't quote me on this. Obviously, part of the revelations was to fast for God, and fasting is the only thing we do in Islam that is for God. It's our way of thanking Him, I guess, for everything that we have. Every other pillar, it's you do it for yourself, and I guess for the end of life and when you're going to get judged. But um, that was one of the things that God asked of Muhammad. I'm giving you all of this knowledge. So this is what you repay me back.
When you were little and you would like your parents would be like, all right, it's Ramadan, can't eat all day. Did you understand? uh, I don't want to say why, but was that difficult for you growing up? Be like, why can't I eat during these like during this whole month? Like I want whatever.
So I want to say, I don't know if you know this or not. You don't fast until you hit puberty.
Did not know that.
So yeah, so you don't fast until you hit puberty. That goes for boys and girls, females
Hmm.
and males. And when I was little, I just remember being like excited. When I say little, it was like maybe, I don't know, 7, 8, 9. It was like, oh, Ramadan's starting, because it's such like a special month for everybody. You know, you're going to see your relatives. You get this huge like table of awesome meals and sweets and whatnot. And that's what like the kid in me remembers.
Hmm.
And I would ask my mom if I can fast, and I would do like a half a day. So it would be like at noon I can eat. And then but it is understood that once you reach puberty, then you have to fast the whole 30 days for the actual entire day,
Yeah.
because you're deemed an adult and you can
Right.
fast. But there are obviously exceptions if you have medical reasons not to, or if you are pregnant or you take medication. So there are exceptions to the rule.
Hmm.
It's not just everybody needs to
Yeah.
fast
So
deal.
let me rephrase the question then. Think like I can think of times when I was younger, and then I would watch either my parents or older cousins or whatever have to do something where I'd be like, oh, I really don't want to do that. And
Yeah.
then you turn the next year, and then it's like, okay, now you also have to do that and like
Yeah.
dread and like be dreading it. Did you have that sort of experience?
100%. And I will be honest, I dread it still now every single year because I mean, as a kid, and I think I started fasting when I was 13. Like I said before that, I would be excited because it was like, oh, I can fast half a day. It's fine. It was an exciting thing. But to be told you can't eat, you can't drink water, um, nobody wants to do that. And especially as a kid, and being in the United States and being in a country where Ramadan is really not celebrated by the majority
Hmm.
of the population, and you go to school and everybody is still doing their normal activities and still eating, still drinking, and you're 13 and you're like, I hate this. I don't want to be doing this. Yeah, it definitely was something that I dread, and I hate to say it, but I still dread it every year because you have to reshift your entire schedule and how you do everything to do that month of
Hmm.
Ramadan.
When you were in school, did you find that the other kids were fairly understanding and of Ramadan and what you were doing, or was it kind of a mix? Or what was your experience like in school being um, it's not weird, but as kids would view it, the weird doing the
It's
weird
yeah,
thing.
It is weird. I mean, it's weird to people. It's weird to kids. I would say my experience for the most part was pretty positive. I mean, I grew up in Arlington, Virginia. It's a pretty diverse community. I went to Wakefield High School. I went to Kenmore Middle School. It's a very diverse community. So we had Muslims that were fasting. People are always very curious if you're doing something different than they do. So there were always lots of questions. And why are you doing this? And well, don't you want to just drink water? Well, can't you just have a piece of gum? Or just the normal curiosity questions. But overall, my experience was positive. I think up until, I want to say, college. And still in college, people were like, nobody was rude, but it was just the way things were said, maybe like almost like a backhanded compliment, or, oh, I could never do that. Like, that just sounds so crazy, or that just sounds so not good for you, or so stupid. So, overall, my experience was positive. But I always have to, even now, out of college, in my corporate job, now I'm just doing my own thing. People are always asking questions. It's never just oh, I'm fasting. Okay. And they go about their day. They always have to like, why do you
Yeah.
do it? How long do you do it? Won't you die? There's a lot of won't you die questions. And yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
that's yeah. I definitely the first time that I encountered somebody celebrating Ramadan, I think I definitely asked questions as well. But now I make it a point to not really, I don't say bother them, but I know what they're doing and I don't feel the need to ask, and just
Because you're informed.
yeah.
And the questions are fine. I don't want to sit here and make people like think they shouldn't ask questions, but there's a way you go about it. There's a curiosity, like, what is it? Why do you do
Mhm.
it? How long is it for? Versus the won't you die?
Yeah,
This
of
is
course.
crazy. Don't you? And like people that are like, what? You can't have water. Like, you must want to have water. Or like, oh, come on, this piece of gum won't kill you. Like, that's where like the backhanded
Yeah.
compliments and just rudeness comes out.
Yeah. I am glad to hear though that your experience was mostly positive growing up in the US while celebrating that, because I know, especially given the way that the US is now in terms of divisiveness and different
Yeah.
issues, that you would not expect, but you would be um, it wouldn't be as surprising if your experience had been less positive, I guess we'll say.
I mean, I was fortunate enough to have gone to diverse schools, and I would say University of Mary Washington was still decent. I mean, we still had diversity. It wasn't like, and it was people that like you and I came from high schools that were pretty diverse. But my brother had the total opposite experience. He went to the University of Richmond. I'm not going to go into detail, and I'm sure you know what's happened there, especially in the past year. But he had racist things said to him and remarks
Hmm.
said and made, and his experience wasn't positive. So it depends on where you are and the people that are around you and the environment they grew up in, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's quite sad to hear. I think even it goes back to the thing we were talking about just dieting, about each to their own. It's kind of it's how I view life generally.
Yeah,
Um, if you are not you or whoever is not actively infringing on me to do
yeah,
whatever, like I really don't have a problem. Like, you do you, it's your life. Like, I'm not responsible for it.
I agree. But I think it's a people almost feel. I think it's the human nature to feel like threatened or afraid if you do something different than I do, and that's kind of like a defense mechanism almost. The backhanded questions or comments or whatever is like, I don't understand it, I don't want to understand it, and that's it. Versus just either not understanding it and keeping it to yourself and you're not hurting me and I'm going to keep going about my day, or I'm curious and I want to know and thanks for informing me and I'll still keep going about my day. So
Yeah. How do you think we get more people to have that mindset of the curiosity, I want to understand, but I'm still assured in myself that I don't feel the need to kind of be defensive about how I'm living my own life and make a backhanded compliment or that sort of thing? How do you think we go about getting more people to have that sort of mindset?
I think the number one thing, I don't want to say like education, but like traveling. Traveling is a huge part of just broadening your understanding of different cultures, customs, languages, foods, everything. So I traveled when I was yay big to still now. And I know whenever I step foot into a country, I need to look up the way they greet each other, they do things, so I don't offend anybody. And yeah, that goes back to education. Like we have the internet, we have a plethora of information, but you have to be willing to partake in all of that. And that goes back to you should travel and get out of your own comfort zone to understand how to talk to people and understand the world around you versus being in your own bubble and only understanding what you do and how your community does it and then not being open to anything else.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. The example I always use is I was in South Africa for like 3 weeks with
Yeah.
a it was a big group, and but we were able to, when we went places, it was kind of just all right, buses parked here, don't go to that part of the neighborhood,
Yeah.
otherwise meet back here in like 2 hours or whatever. And I would always just kind of wander around and try to, and most of the people spoke English, so that was obviously helpful.
Yeah.
But I would just find people, ask them questions, like our tour guides who are from there. I'd just ask them all sorts of questions all the time. And then in Mexico is a little bit different. We were there for soccer, so we were kind of in a bubble
Yeah.
a little bit, but we still interacted with people. But yeah, and that's one of the things I need to travel more, but traveling is huge because you just learn how different people live, kind of how they go about their lives and what sort of customs and different things that they have. And
Yeah.
even if you don't know the reasons for them, then it kind of makes you look at how you live yourself and say, well, I was curious about why that culture did this way. I don't actually know why I do this way. Let me figure out why. And it kind of
Yeah.
can spark a curiosity in you.
Yeah, and you learn, I think traveling, you learn so much more about yourself as a person rather than, yeah, you learn about the culture and tradition of wherever place you're in, but you learn so much about yourself in terms of like how you think, how you handle situations, how you ask questions. So like for example, when I was studying abroad, and Europe, it's a very like close knit, just everybody's shoulder to shoulder, everybody's kissing
Mm-hmm.
each other's faces, and like that was fine. And here we're kind of like personal space, scoot back. We just are a larger country in general. And that was like the first thing I realized when I was in Europe. I was getting frustrated because people would just bump into me and not say excuse me, or like try to almost stand next to you if you're in line versus behind you and like give you your space. And I was getting like frustrated and like almost arguing with people. And then I went back to my host family and I asked them, and they were just like, that's just the way it is here. Like by nature, the spaces are much smaller. People are okay standing next shoulder to shoulder. Bumping into you is not a huge deal because you are standing shoulder to shoulder. They don't feel the need to say excuse me because it's implied that like we're in a close environment. So I don't need to say sorry for bumping into you. So I had to kind of not take that personally. Like you don't need that. It's not the way they do things there. And I need to be okay with that. So that's just a small example, but in general, like travel, you learn more about yourself
Yeah.
than anything else.
No, that's a very good example, I think, especially because it deals with kind of adversity and stuff that's happening to you rather than something that you just noticed happening like across the street or whatever.
Yeah.
Because then you have to figure out how to deal with a difficult situation in a culture where certain things might be like you don't know where the line is in this culture versus like in the US, like the line of like where it turned, not that you would want to get into a physical confrontation, but like where the line is more
100%. Yeah.
and you don't know where the line is there. um I also think that studying abroad, I don't know, I still think that I wouldn't have done it, but I think probably at least at UMW, I don't know, I don't recall it being readily available in terms of information. I don't know,
I
is it,
agree.
so I think probably UMW in particular, because that's my experience, but I think colleges generally probably, I think you would learn more I tell people this often. I think I learn more about myself and living about myself in college than I actually learned from like the books and stuff.
100%.
And I think that is you would probably do the same studying abroad. So I think probably that information and the opportunities that are available should probably be more readily sort of out there, easier to access, find information about, etc.
I agree. I mean, with studying abroad, I remember I was having to ask all the questions and like find all the resources. It wasn't just like, oh, you want to study abroad? Okay, here is everything you need to know and apply and do it. They were helpful, but I was the one kind of spearheading the entire thing. I think it's really important. Like colleges should push that, and traveling should just be pushed in general. But it's very hard because we have everything available to us here that it almost makes you feel like, why would I want to go to a different country? And it's I don't know if you follow. Oh, actually, never mind. You probably don't know her, but I'm getting college and high school mixed up together.
No, you're good.
But there's a friend from high school that I follow, and she's like traveled, I think 40 countries now.
That's awesome.
And that's what she's doing and documenting it on Instagram. And the other day she put up a question of when you want to travel, do you get family members or friends or acquaintances trying to tell you, oh, don't go there, I had the worst experience, or don't go there, I heard they're super racist. And she made a blog post about it that was really interesting. It was just like, don't impose your own experience on other people. Like, oh, you want to go to Africa? Awesome. Cool. Let me know how it goes versus, oh my gosh, I heard XYZ. So I'm not sure where I was going with that, but.
No. Well, I mean, that's important. There's also the flip side to that where it depends on who that anecdote is coming from as well. Like if I were to say, I didn't have a great experience here, at least to like you or one of my other friends, I feel like it would be taken more seriously than maybe somebody who's just like, oh, that was horrible, but like they don't have a reason why.
Yeah.
So it depends on kind of like who the person is. But the other thing is, in terms of study abroad, is if you don't have all the information readily available. Like, I don't think I was ready to do that in college, just from a personal perspective. But if I was like on the fence and they made me do all the work to figure it out, I would like that would be like, no, I'd rather not go.
I agree.
So it's tough. It's tough because you want people to go. Like college kids are not the most proactive generally.
I would agree.
So to do something that's scary where they have to do all the work, it's like, why would I do all the work for something that I don't even know if I want to do?
No, I agree. And they should have, it should be a more like we encourage this to be done and give you all the resources, answer all the questions, and have people that did the studying abroad thing and like to talk to. I mean, the UMW did have some people, but all they said was like, it was awesome. It was life-changing. And I hate when people say things like that because it's like, why was it life-changing?
Yeah.
Why was it awesome? What can I expect from this experience? And like you said yourself, if you were on the fence and you go and somebody tells you it was life-changing, it would probably kind of make you like, okay, I don't want to go anymore. I don't even want to do this. Cause like, what do you mean by that?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it should be more advocated for because it is a form of education and it's better than putting your nose into a textbook and trying to read about a culture versus living it.
Yeah. Living in it is definitely the way to go. They did do well. Even we had like exchange students at UMW and nobody knew that those people existed either. I had to go
put them in a bubble.
I had to go seek them out, and then I became friends with a few of them, and that was really good because I would ask them all sorts of questions all the time, and I learned more that way. But I don't know.
They put them in a bubble. I think so. Like my brother's school, U of R, I would say they did a good job as far as like receiving foreign exchange students. They didn't put them in like a hall by themselves. It was like, okay, you go to this dorm, you get an actual normal American college attendant, and that's it. Like that's how they assimilated into the culture. And it was a year's worth of studying abroad versus I was there for 6 months. So I think a whole year of being in a college here and getting to be around people loved it. And it wasn't like UMW. I think it was in the international. I forget which hall it was in, but they were
It
all
was
just
like,
together.
yeah, it was the one that was like behind Jefferson, like
Yeah,
down the
they were
hill.
all just
Yeah.
together. And of course, if you're in an uncomfortable situation, you stick to people that are like you and
Mhm.
that are just as uncomfortable as you are. And that doesn't help anybody, us or them.
No. Yeah, I definitely didn't. I think we got lucky with a couple of the ones that were there that wanted to play soccer, and were willing to kind of bring me and a couple of other of the soccer players over. We hung out with them fairly often.
Yeah.
I think we got lucky in that
Yeah.
respect. But yeah, I think you said you had an hour. I think this is a good place to stop.
I would say so.
I
Yeah.
really appreciated the time.
Thank
Definitely
you.
learned a lot. And if for those listening that are on the fence about traveling, go
Do
travel.
it.
Yeah, definitely go travel. No COVID exists right now, and that stinks. So do your research. But um, yeah, the education from that is definitely worth the weight in gold, I would say.
100%.
Where can we find your fitness stuff on social media?
So I am on Instagram at Aicha.fit, and that's AICHA.fit. I am on YouTube, but it is mostly Arabic content. So if anybody out there is listening in Arabic, it is also Aisha's Aesthetic. So same first name and then AESTHETIC. But yeah, that's where I'm online.
Sounds good. We'll get all those links in the description. We'll make it easy for everybody to find those. And with that, we'll be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Bye, everybody.
Bye.